again. But let's just go into the hot take version. Is Taco Bell Mexican food?
No.
Okay.
I love Taco Bell, and I would say it's not even Mexican food, but it is.
Yeah.
It is decent fast food budget.
Yes. Yes, for the money, I think it is some of the best fast food for sure.
I also think like this could be a really hot take, but I think quality wise, it is better than most like top rated fast food. So if you think like McDonald's, Burger King, I don't know, Wendy's, I think Taco Bell quality wise is probably better than those.
I need to go to your Taco Bell because the one that's near me is like they still have the 90s decor. It's not one that they've managed to like do a remodel on, so it's like that. And like just because I've taken my son there just once or twice, something like that.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere though that they invented the crunchy taco, right? Is it I'm pretty sure it's them. Taco Bell invented the crunchy taco.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I read something that would sound familiar. That there was very few people like making crunchy type tacos, and I was like, okay, hey, let's do this.
And I know crunchy tacos are an American thing. Like they were not, and pretty much are still not a thing in Mexico. But they have tostadas, like just fold it up. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably just took like a corn tortilla and were like, you know what? People hate when these get really like soggy and your finger goes through it or whatever. Let's just bake them a really long time and see what happens. And they were like, oh, this works.
Yeah. I think, don't they like deep fry and then like hang them on a thing and then basically
probably.
it dries in that or something? I don't remember. Something of that nature, but I feel like I've seen it once. That said, I still think that's a hot take and strong statement around it's the highest quality fast food.
Maybe not highest quality, but top five, I would say. Like if we're talking about fast food, you can get an entree under, let's say, $12.
Yeah, you got to raise those standards these days.
Yeah.
I
think
feel like fast food's gotten
Chick-fil-A
expensive.
Chick-fil-A is the number one quality wise, I feel like.
That's true.
It's not necessarily my
agree with
favorite flavor. It doesn't have enough chemicals in it to be yummy like Taco Bell does. But
And they haven't managed to like squeeze in enough fake cheese and whatever else in there.
Yeah.
yeah.
But see, Chick-fil-A, I would kind of put in almost in like the tier 2. So there's like tier 1 budget tier, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, and then Chick-fil-A,
national, right?
In-N-Out, maybe Whataburger you could kind of put in, maybe that tier 2.
I was gonna say because In-N-Out's quality, like it or not, you gotta say like the quality is just top notch.
It just feels like you're tasting a fresh burger. Yeah,
absolutely. And the fries are like literally you can watch them cutting them. It's like doesn't get better than that. But you know, we could debate that all day long because I think Robbie, you tried In-N-Out and you were like me.
No. So here's the thing. Everyone swears on it being like so amazing, and I hadn't tried it for the first say 25 years of my life or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I tried it after hearing about it forever. And I was like, this is a burger, guys. Like, this is fine. I don't dislike it, but it's like, I'm not like, oh my God, I should go to this all the time. Like,
I also feel like you're not like a burger, like you're not a fiend for burger. Like I love burgers. Like if you
I
were,
would
like,
get
saying,
Five Guys over In-N-Out all day long.
Interesting.
Five Guys like toppings and all of that stuff, great. I love their fries because I like a greasy fry actually, and so I prefer that with Five Guys. But like Five Guys, plain like if you don't get all the crap on the Five Guys burger, it's fine, it's all right, you know. But it's just all this extra crap. And fun fact, extra bacon free.
At Five
So you get a
Guys?
single patty, extra bacon. Yeah, that's the Five Guys hack. All the way, extra bacon.
What if you want
There you go.
18 extra bacons? Is that free?
No, just one order of extra bacon. That's all you get. You asked the questions that you already know. But all right, let's zoom back into.
Do we talk technology on this podcast? Do we do any of that?
Wonder why no tech places want to sponsor us.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
We jump into Whatnot, In-N-Out a whole bunch. But was React a mistake?
Was React a mistake? I don't think so.
Wrong. No,
Immediate like shutdown. I think how people used React and then built on top of it is a mistake.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Nuanced answer. Yeah. Yeah, I talk about that all the time, that like React on its own as the view rendering layer is fine. Everything we've done since then is not fine.
Yeah, it was magic. It was beautiful. I
Yeah.
enjoyed. Like I had so much fun with it when it first came out, and I got to move over to like just this component is reactive and like made login just no refresh. You just boom get your new state. I love it, and state is just passing something else to that component, and it was so the days of simplicity, class components.
Yeah,
I miss them.
I think like where it becomes mistakes, or even just like where it becomes difficult to kind of adjust for things, is like when you try to fit or try to solve problems with tools that weren't meant to solve problems with. And so then you have like this rendering layer that you're trying to say like, okay, like maybe we'll just make this the server too, or maybe we'll just like maybe we'll have all of our like data fetching in this component too. And so I think that's where like the mistake comes as a like a rendering tool. I think like it's still incredible. Like there's nothing in terms of like ecosystem coming up against it right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the other side is like the rate of that it's been adopted at. It's sort of like you can't ignore it necessarily
Oh yeah.
in circumstances. So
Yeah, unfortunately. Something else that you can't ignore, Tailwind or vanilla CSS?
I feel like I learned web development in a weird age, or like just weird time where like I learned a lot of really basics, but then when I got into actually building applications, like learning React, I learned I learned vanilla CSS, but I feel like I couldn't write vanilla CSS right now unless I would search for like the Tailwind term and then figure out how I'm supposed to write it. Like that would probably be how I would have to write vanilla CSS.
Yeah.
I still have a couple projects that are um I forget like what's the it's kind of like the pink nail as an icon. I forget what the React
Sass?
not
SAS,
SAS.
Oh,
It's called like Emotion
stylus?
CSS or
I don't know. I was throwing stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
but it's basically like you write
Right,
CSS
right.
inline in your components. So I have a couple projects that use that, and like every time I jump to them, I'm like, it'd be nice if I could just like write this on the component, because I suck at naming. That's why I don't
Oh,
like
yeah.
vanilla
Yeah.
CSS. Really,
That's what I like about Tailwind is that it's already figured that part out for me.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean I wrote vanilla CSS for like 10 years in various ideologies, and I don't think I could go and write CSS anymore because the crutch that is Tailwind is like just so much easier.
Yep.
Yeah, like the grid stuff too. I have never written vanilla CSS grid stuff at all. Like I don't need to remember what 1FR is or what min max does or any of that. Like I can just be like grid calls 3. Like
Yeah.
there's my 3 columns. Like
Yeah, they're
Clamps
done.
and all
Not
this.
float
Yeah.
left,
Yeah.
float left, float right, clear, clear fix. If you've ever written a class called Clear Fix, that's how you know you're OG.
Yeah, I the thing that I like about Tailwind is like, especially when I was learning web development, a lot of the stuff that I couldn't figure out, or just like it took a while for me to wrap my head around, was the fact that okay, I have all of these components now on the page, but now the CSS isn't scoped to the components. Like the whole scoping aspect was really weird, and that's one of the things I reached for, like emotion CSS and all that, because you could scope it to the React. But like the fact that then I would have to be like, okay, this is this naming ID for this component, and even though I had multiple components and they were still cards, but now this is card dash blank, and now I have to scope into that. And so I think with Tailwind, one of the things that one of the ways that I build a lot of my stuff is like I just I try to get like all of it working at once. And I feel like with CSS, it's like, okay, like if with vanilla CSS, a lot of times it might be like, okay, I'm writing the HTML and then I'm writing the React and then I'm writing vanilla CSS. And it's kind of like
You're right.
compartmentalized.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were taught that was the right way for a while, right? Separation of concerns, and no, not. And then who knows what the right way is, really. It's like in the moment, this is the right way. And then tomorrow, that was all stupid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is something that does have a right answer. Do you want to ask the next one, Chuck?
Uh-oh. Okay.
Now I'm scared.
Yeah, you should be. Get rebase or get merge?
I'm gonna say the answer based off of which one I use more. So
Okay.
get merge.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Because am I right in assuming that maybe you have a lot of independent or small team projects versus
Yep.
large team projects? Yeah.
So like most of the stuff that I've done personally has just been me as a solo developer. And then anything I've done like within a team is usually one or two people. Even stuff on the Laravel team. Most of the time, I'm not pushing like too much code, but it's only there. It's a small team. I have never worked I technically have never worked full time as a developer. In the sense, I've done like a lot of support engineering type stuff or like solutions engineering type stuff, but I've never worked on a full-time engineering team. And so I've never been with more than 3 people probably on a project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense that
allude
you
to
wouldn't
what is
need
the
to
right
rebase
answer.
a lot.
Yep. Yeah.
Right,
I've never had to,
You
to think
could.
about, okay, hey, here's like 20 things being done. Usually it's like, hey, one person takes a feature, you just push do a new checkout branch, and then you're only on that
Yeah.
until you push it in.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at that point, once it gets merged, it could get like squash merged, and
Yep.
then that all the weirdness goes away anyway. But
Exactly.
yeah, maybe that should have been the thing. Like, which of the 3 options on GitHub do you pick?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one
It
is
often
maybe more controversial. Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
switch it for
exactly.
next time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I do think that that's often an artifact of what your working situation is, which is why like the right answer is always it depends. Like, yeah, rebase will work in all of the scenarios per se, but it adds a lot of complexity and there's a learning curve there. And is it necessary? No, being productive is necessary and things beyond that. But then, if you're not following a large team and you do the other thing, you do your thing, well, then you have 25 people mad at you because everybody's using this thing and now stuff got all crazy and weird and their own updates of their personal branch, yeah, yada, yada, yada. But it is
Yeah.
a fun one to ask.
That is one of those times. I mean, I've only had a couple of those scenarios when it's like, okay, hey, 30 plus people are pushing to a singular branch and everything like that. That's one of those scenarios where like this could be a decent hot take, but I don't use a Git like GUI or anything. But in those scenarios, it's really helpful for me to like see it visually. Be like, okay, hey, here's all like the files that were changed, and I can see it all. I don't have to do like all these Git diffs and all the things like that. But that's the one time I usually reach for a GUI.
Oh, yep. So otherwise, you're a real developer. You don't necessarily depend on a GUI, right? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Otherwise,
man.
I don't even have like I feel like I should have, but like I don't even have aliases for like git add, git commit, git push. I just
Ooh,
type it
right.
all out every
Yeah,
single
it's
time,
not
even
that
though I do it a lot.
long. So like, yeah, the people that need it to be like 2 characters, like it takes you like literally 1 more second, which I guess, oh, well, if you add them all up over your whole life, it's like, I saved 5 minutes before I died.
Whatever. I have the aliases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong
I've
with
had
them. I just
for
don't think
years,
they're
though, whatever.
required. Like,
Yeah.
No, they're not required. Like I have like one that I use all the time is get status. So GS is like really fun and easy. There's some that I want to type out and like
Yeah.
get whatever, like when I'm get pushing with like force with with lease, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
I want to type that out. I want to be very explicit in certain times. But
Yeah.
I also haven't messed with my aliases in probably at least 5-6 years because I was years ago was like playing with dot files for a few years. Like, oh yeah, I want my setups on new computers to be super easy, and that was nice. Except now I mostly just do the whole like time machine backups become my
Yeah.
new. You just like, okay, great, like set up from this backup, and then so I never have to run dot files anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. I only have one alias that I use. Well, I guess I have a couple. Like I have I like a git undo alias that does like the whole revert like last one and everything like that. I'd use this. I learned this from like the Laravel ecosystem. Taylor Otwell has this where it's just WIP, like whip, and that does like a git add all, git commit, work in progress. Like this, so I'm like, okay, if I'm just starting out a project, I just type that. I don't have to worry about those 3 commands. But that's the only one I use. I don't even use a lot of like Laravel folks use because you have to type PHP artisan a lot for the CLI within Laravel, and a lot of people use like PA or just like art for PHP artisan. I still type it out fully, so that might be one I just it's just ingrained into me that I'm like I don't feel like I need to shorten this.
Yeah. Also, depending on like I use Warp, and before that, I used like the fish shell, and like all of them autocomplete everything. So it doesn't really like I type a couple letters and just autocompletes. It doesn't matter. So
that is nice.
Autocomplete is kind of nice. This episode is brought to you by Warp.dev. We'll
we'll send you a bill
after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna mention like one of the Git clients I used, and I was like, yeah, it's not sponsored, so we'll keep it out of this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But that said, this episode is brought to you by Laravel. Taylor, I would also like a Lambo.
Yes.
Or a Ferrari. Is that okay? Can I get a Ferrari?
They don't like
I know
each
that
other,
they
so
don't like each other. Yeah, but he's not Italian, you know.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't mind a Ferrari, honestly. Like I don't know him well enough to answer for him in that regard, but
right. You didn't get invited to the basketball game, or at least
I was there on the sidelines and cheering people on.
Nice.
I was not on the court at all. Yeah,
that's fair.
I wasn't good enough, honestly. I'm 5'10".
Yeah, did they have tryouts?
I don't think they had tryouts,
5'10".
but I think they had decided the team before I joined the company. I could be wrong on that. Maybe that was just to ease my own feelings. But
yeah, explain it all out. Why didn't we ask Seth Rogen to play with us? Well, because he's high as fuck all the time. Throughout this, we're alluding to, and there was something on Twitter about it, but yeah, your resemblance to that Canadian master ashtray maker is what I understand. So.
Yeah, and I've said that now. I like comedy so long. This is complete tangent, but I used to almost want to be on part of SNL. So like I understand and appreciate a lot of comedy, but now I really want to try to get some Seth Rogen impressions going, because now maybe that's my next full-time gig. Like maybe I'm just a Seth Rogen impersonator, and maybe I can
yeah
you should do some deep
fakes
fakes
and stuff.
Do some deep fake videos and like teach everyone how to code some stuff, but like in Seth Rogen's voice.
Rogen's voice. That would be
that would be pretty good.
That's a good idea.
I would like and subscribe.
I'm writing this down then.
Yeah. Yeah, he may
I think I already
send you a
subscribed to
cease
your
and desist
videos, so
letter,
you're okay.
but we'll see.
We'll see if he cares enough or notices, or he's like, okay, there's this guy in tech.
If I don't do a deep fake and it's just like an impression.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's okay if you have like some sort of Go there. You go.
YouTube only asks like when you
make it
upload videos, like if you're trying to depict someone else like falsely, so that I should be fine.
Yeah, I would know. I don't upload videos to YouTube.
They have
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
if Robbie
options.
does it. Okay. I was gonna say, yeah, and so he clicks. He's impatient. I was gonna say, like Robbie is the production team, partially, and so some of that is happening. We have someone edit and work on some. Do you still upload them, Robbie?
No,
Yourself,
not anymore. But they
or
don't
does that
like
get done now?
add the tags or check all the boxes and stuff. So I do some tweaking afterwards.
Oh, yeah, you go back to OCD it a little bit. He needs medication. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, should we talk about some additional technical things? I mean, we're like really getting
Probably,
into this.
yeah. I don't know. You go ahead,
hot
Chuck.
take his ass all day.
Yeah. We'll skip the rest of the hot takes.
You're the yeah, fair enough. I did want to know who would win in an arm wrestling match, Guillermo Rausch or Taylor Otwell. That's an easy one. Come
Taylor
on.
is
First of all,
like
pick your
6'4". Yeah. So like
Yeah.
just on sheer height, Like I feel like
Yeah.
arm length would definitely be longer. I also think
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Taylor's pretty ripped. I don't know if he works out
I think he's
personally,
pretty buff.
but he's lean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
He seems like a
I
buff
would vote for
fellow.
him.
Yeah. Plus, you're trying to get that Christmas bonus. Okay, so as the self-described JS to HP guy, tell us about the challenges you've had in making that transition.
Challenges. I would say the biggest interesting part for me was like because I came from a JS world where it was similar to like that CSS stuff that we were talking about. You kind of have everything in one file. I'm not very co-location is important kind of thing. So I very much like having okay, whether was using like Firebase or whatever have you at the time. I like being able to say, okay, I have this component, and in this one file or maybe folder or directory, I have all the things I need to know about that component. And so when I moved to Laravel, one of the things that was really interesting to kind of like think through is like, okay, now I have so much separation. There's like models, and then there's views, and then there's controllers, and like I don't I didn't like that at first, and I still don't like it. So now, I I use I use this thing called Livewire Volt, which is basically a single file component that is server rendered. So I can write PHP functions in the top. It's almost like old school PHP, where I can write server side functions that do something in the database or cache or whatever have you, and change and not have to write any controllers. And so now it's just kind of like models and views in a lot of ways. So like
Ooh,
that is improved my developer experience a lot within PHP and within Laravel, because now I feel like I'm writing what I'm used to within JavaScript of having everything. Hey, here's everything in one file. I know what happens. I know when I click this button, I don't have to go look for an API route and then look in a controller to make sure I know how all this is being passed or being collected. Now I just look in one file and can just scroll up.
yeah, nice.
Interesting.
Although all of our back end listener, because there's just one, it's Lane Wagner, and we pay him. He about it. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, if it's working for you, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that also
The
comes
second
down.
part of that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that also comes down to like me also a lot of the projects that I do, whether that's just demos or just like my own like personal stuff. Like I know that probably breaks down at bigger teams when you're like, okay, now we have all of this stuff and like files are getting bigger. Like I think that's the nicety of the flexibility of a lot of PHP stuff, especially like when you have such a structured opinionated framework like Laravel, for example. Like JavaScript, even within like some of the meta frameworks, you kind of don't, if something was to get too big, you don't really have the option of like splitting it up into separation of concerns. You kind of have to do all that manually unless you're rewriting a lot of it in some ways. And so I think like the flexibility of having that while also knowing like, okay, most of the things that I'm doing, I just want to get something working and then I'll revert it or fix it up in the future.
Yeah, I am curious because I haven't really done anything back end like at all aside from an API route here and there. Like is that kind of the norm? Because I think Rails also is like MVC based, like they have controllers and stuff.
Yeah,
and like,
it is.
do all of the kind of like server first frameworks still stick to that sort of paradigm?
I think so, at least from what I've seen. Like even like Phoenix with Elixir and Rails, and even like some of like the
Django.
backside frameworks, Django, yeah, even some of the backside frameworks like Node within like Nest.js or like Sails, they're very much separation of concerns. And so I've always said that like if there is something, like if Next.js or Astro, for example, wants to become the opinionated framework, Laravel, batteries included, Rails, whatever have you of JavaScript, it's going to not be moving to MVC. It's going to be like sticking with what people are used to writing in JavaScript now and just giving more stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where Next is going for sure. And, giving more to a degree. The problem I always have is that like to be considered a web application framework, you should be able to have a fully functional web application with just the framework itself.
Yep.
And so many of these miss login authentication aspects of it. I think that's huge. I think like things like mailers and webhooks and all of that are very necessary parts of web applications. You know, you could try to make an argument for or against, but for the most part, you're like that exists across the board, some sort of functionality. And as soon as you have to reach for other tools or services,
Hmm.
then it's no longer a really complete framework. Sure, it is a framework, but I'm not sure it's a complete web application framework in my view.
Yep. Yep. That itself was like what I was like frustrated too much about all the JavaScript frameworks that I liked. And like I think, not to be wrong, like or to be fair, like I think a lot of the services are really nice because you have all this like scaffolded out for you. But it's the fact that it's integrated really cleanly because it is first party associated. So if you have like Rails or Laravel or even Phoenix with Elixir and stuff like that, you have this fact of like, okay, I have with usually the starter kit or like the first creation of it has all the scaffolded out. And when I started messing around with Rails and Laravel and Phoenix and ultimately like chose Laravel mostly because the PHP syntax looked more like JavaScript than Elixir or Ruby to me. So I was like, oh, this makes a little bit more sense. It was mind blowing to me that I could have a user sign up and then be able to like have information displayed from that user on the page. Because if I was trying to do that in any other framework, even with services, there's still like, okay, now my service is separate from my database, and now I have to push that into my database, and now I have to display that on the page. And so like that really sold me as someone who didn't come from the batteries included framework world. I'm like, oh, this is why did we not do this more?
That's a great question as things come around full circle. I think
I
that's the
know
question
why.
that's being asked a lot. Yeah, go ahead. Money, marketing. What else?
Because people like things that are hard and like solving hard engineering problems and feeling good about themselves. They don't want to go like just spin it up for me and then I like focus on, the stuff that actually matters. They want to spend 2 years writing a bespoke React based framework and then go, wait, all this sucks, and then redo it for 2 years. Like they like that part. They don't like building the business logic. So that's why we keep doing this.
Right, and that's why auth as a service becomes a thing because auth, create either having auth done for you or doing a basic auth implementation, which could be simplified, is not enough of a challenge per se. Possibly, conversely, like the idea is like, oh yeah, well, this is a solved problem. Just use the thing, but when it scales, and they'll be like, oh, because if I do it myself, it may not scale, and then I've got to come back to this problem. The irony is that, yeah, sure, that Auth0 scales, Clerk scales, whatever. That's all true, or I'll assume it to be true. But it also gets really expensive. So what is worse? Like you're starting to scale, and you've got to put more engineering power into scaling the thing, infrastructure-wise or complexity-wise. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that's like the gray area that becomes a big part of the question more recently. So
Yeah.
and
I
as I
think
get older, I'm just like, get off my lawn. All the old stuff is fine.
yeah, I think a lot of people like I don't know if it's like human instinct or maybe it's just like where developers have kind of like gone. People like to like it's like that aspect of okay, I don't necessarily need this to be different, but what if I don't want this to be opinionated? And so I think a lot of people kind of are get turned off with, oh yeah, Laravel, you really only have like everyone just kind of there's people who write plain CSS in Laravel, for example, but most of the time, 90% of people I would say are currently in modern Laravel are probably writing Tailwind, or you have these opinions of okay, you have a database connector, so you're not using a different ORM within Laravel. I think JavaScript developers or just developers in general probably like the idea of having okay, like yes, it's nice I can use this, but what if I ever want to change in the future, like you like having
You don't.
opinions, but you don't want that locked inness kind of thing, and you end up being more locked in some ways.
Yeah. It's actually what I started disliking about React apps at the time when I was using React early on, like 2014, when it came out, and I loved it for its purposes. And then you started making full-fledged single-page applications, and it was like choose your own adventure. There's like create React app, and then you have to add a router, and React router was a big one, and there was some other stuff. And then what's your state management? It was this, and now it's this, and whatever else. But you never really like change midstream. You're never like halfway through building an app, and then you said, oh, yeah, that package sucks now, and I'm
Yeah.
going to take it out and put in the new one. It's just the next app that you wrote. You were like, oh, well, I remember reading about this, and I want to try this one in here this time. And so that's like the funny irony of the whole thing is you never change, and like midstream in the same project. Like 99% of the time, I'm sure there's times where you do, but like you just change next time, and the next time you have a list of options that you have to pick through instead of being productive. You have to learn the other thing because you're not doing what you did last time. And I think that is the power of these full-fledged web application frameworks is that like, oh, again, I'm doing what I did before, and that all just works, and you just figure out the problems down the line as you go through. No one decides halfway through, I want a different ORM.
Yep.
Like, good for you that
Yeah.
you went Prisma to Drizzle. Why? If you started a new one and said Drizzle, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, fine, do your thing. But I also just don't want to think about that stuff every project.
Yeah. I think the problem is though, like when it's too easy, you don't get those little dopamine hits when you solve a problem. So if I'm just like using a generator to spin up a file that does what I need, sure it works, but I could have spent a day with fun challenges, like I think that's the problem. And to be perfectly clear, I'm on the other side. I think opinionated frameworks are what you should use. But like, yeah, I think that's what the problem we've fallen into. And then also like junior developers coming in don't know about the opinionated frameworks. They hear about React, so they spend a bunch of time learning that, and then they do whatever they can to get those like things working together instead of just starting with a full featured thing and it just working. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like
Yep.
it's one of those things where you feel like you're not maybe like this is part of kind of like imposter syndrome or whatever you might call it. But I feel like if you don't know how to do something and you're just using whatever's been given to you, some developers, and like I've been in this camp too, where it's like, okay, am I that good of a developer then if I'm just using like these packages that are kind of given for me? Like within like Laravel, for example, like I have cache and I have queues and all that kind of and workers and jobs kind of set up for me where I can just be like, okay, I just want to set this in the cache, and I would have to find a package in JavaScript to do that, and then I probably feel more of an accomplished developer if I'm like, okay, I can integrate this package as a JavaScript developer, I can put it all together, and now I know how this works because it's a little bit more nitty gritty to the bone kind of thing. And so maybe that's part of it too, is like you like knowing that you are good enough to maybe solve something, even if it makes it easier or makes it harder for you in the long run. I personally don't care if I am like a lazy developer. I'm like, if I'm building a project
why
and
we
like someone
are
uses
developers,
it,
right?
we're good.
Yeah, code makes us efficient.
Yeah.
And if we're relearning the same patterns over and over again, we lose efficiency. So, and if you want to know how the sausage is made, just read the source code, right? Like get in there and understand more, become a contributor. If you think like, yeah, I think you're right. I think that, and the problem with that to a degree can also be where tech is so social now, where it didn't used to be so social. So you worked in a team and someone would be like, go read the fucking manual and figure it out, and then we all get on the same page and we just make stuff. Now instead it's sort of like develop by committee, and you're like, I picked this package and I made this thing, and they're like, dummy, why didn't you pick this? It's so much better. You don't understand, and I'm going to make a video about it now, and why you're dumb, and why this is better than this. And that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's fine, there's space for that, but also it's a lot of noise, and it's a lot of noise from people who aren't making, and that's okay. Like if your thing is to talk about all the possibilities in tech, that's fine. That's your space, you're a creator there. But if you're a developer trying to create stuff or business value, I mean, that's a separate thing, and you don't need to worry about all those things. That's why I think, like, lean into your choice. There's a billion different ways to solve problems. That's actually what I like about development and programming is that there's not one right answer. I mean, there's not. And there's
Yep.
like, well, if you had done this 6 months ago, your problem wouldn't exist. And maybe that's true, but now here's where I am. So now I have a different set of problems to solve. It doesn't make the thing that I did at the time wrong. It just means now I've got some different choices to figure that out. Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's really interesting because yeah,
Right.
I'm the same way where like like I've said it plenty of times before. Like I know I don't even really feel like I know that much about like the syntax of PHP, even though I've been building in like Laravel applications and I work on the Laravel team for like the past couple of years now that I've been building in it. But it's just one of those things where I don't really have to either. Like there's stuff I still keep up with and I still like, no, okay, like that's probably bad syntax. I'll look at the docs, figure it out kind of thing. But I also like am fine if like I have that kind of like magic abstracted for me. And like it's more about to me like what I've learned or just felt as a what I've been growing as a developer is not when I know more syntax or know how to or know more how to do more things from scratch and build it out, but more of like, okay, how would I find the answer if I was building this in a language that I don't know anything about? I know that okay, this is routing, and I need to find out how do I do caching in Phoenix or Elixir or something like that, and I would know how to
Yeah.
build that. That's more of a accomplishment to me in my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I like
Yeah,
that.
being a senior developer is just about knowing how to find the answers. It's not that like we know how to solve everything with no internet from memory. It's just that like, which is also some bullshit on a another tangent about like interviewing. That's how they expect it to be. Whiteboard this. Do a sorting algorithm on the whiteboard real quick. Like why? I'll npm install a sorting algorithm. Like I don't need to. Like anyway. Sorry, a little bit of a rant there.
Oh God. Josh, are you looking for another gig? Because
Well, kind of related. I did want to ask you what advice you had for aspiring content creators.
Yeah. I think so like my content creation story is like really crazy in my mind at least because it's one of those things where like I had done a lot of content for other like for the companies that I was working at. A lot of it was more of like how-to videos for customer support or very basic stuff, not like super technical stuff, but I always was kind of scared to do my own stuff because I was like, like every single thing I'm learning is from someone who I know is much smarter than I am, and they're like their videos or their content or their articles or whatever are much better than I am. So it was always this kind of like, hey, I don't really have too much to give. And I think what kind of helped push me over that little hump and what I would kind of like encourage a lot of people is like a lot of the times the stuff that has resonated the most with people is not stuff that I actually know a lot about. Like I feel like, for example, I know more about Livewire, which is Laravel's HTMX type version. I know more about that than most people. But usually the stuff that resonates is stuff that I'm like, I learned an hour before making the video because I knew that I wanted to learn about this, and then I'm teaching someone that's one step behind me. And so I think a lot of the fear of putting out content is no one's going to watch it because they already know it. But at the same time, if you didn't know it, then there's probably someone who doesn't know it.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it comes through just in maybe you say it differently that someone needed to hear than I would in a lot of ways. So I think that of knowing that being able to learn something really well, sometimes it's best to learn it by actually teaching someone else,
Mhm.
or even just sharing how you learned it. And you don't even have to know how to teach. It's just, hey, this is what I learned, and then I figured out I had to do this, and then I learned that didn't work, so I figured out I had to do this. Um, that combined with like actually doing it consistently over and over, uh, I learned really quickly that I wanted to make videos that I didn't have to spend too much time like forcing myself to. I always like to make things perfect. and I was like, I for some of my videos, like at the start, I was like, I'm gonna edit this until like it looks perfect. I'm gonna have like sound effects and like, you know, like little animations, and like then it was a video that I was like recorded on my iPhone that got the first 100K views and all this. Like it doesn't really matter too much about that. So find ways to you so that you can get the quality that you want. I'm not saying sacrifice quality or excellence or anything like that, but find ways so that you can like press record and be like, I have this video done in like an hour or 2 hours or whatever that time limit is. And then I can do that at least once a week or at least twice a week or at least whatever that time limit is. If you make it too hard where you're like you want to make content, but then all of a sudden you get annoyed or frustrated or just overwhelmed because it takes you 3 weeks plus to put out a video, then you're probably doing it the wrong way in a lot of ways. Or at least you should start with doing that and then you can do more stuff like that down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe fail fast. Just
Yep.
do it, fail fast.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think like making sure like start with streaming. Like you don't have to be that entertaining streaming. I know I personally am not, but like the fact that you're streaming it and recording it live, like some people have already seen it, so you could just ship it in that form versus like needing to be like, oh, it needs to be 100% perfect like when I edit it later. So yeah, like just getting content out there is half the battle for sure. Because yeah, you're right. Like nobody knows the correct formula for like what is going to resonate with everyone on every single video. I mean, there's some people that do really well, but like, you know, half the time it's just mostly luck and it's like a topic that happened to, you know, be important that day. And so a lot of people watched it or whatever. Like, you know, so just put out stuff that you want to put out and are passionate about. I think that is important. Like if you are making, you know, stupid videos that you don't like yourself with like stuff you don't care about, that's going to kind of come through in like how you deliver it, that you aren't enjoying it.
Can I just put out like stupid looking placeholder images?
Yes, you can. And then
Do
just
that?
make the,
That's all. No
the video is
just
just
be like,
you like,
It's just
it's
you
like stop
pulling that
motion. You
pose.
just, yeah.
yeah, it's just me. I'm gonna live stream just this.
How
There's
long can
probably
you stay in that? Yeah.
yeah, there's
know.
probably some audience for that too. They like
There probably is.
yeah. There's an audience for everything.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, I like that take because I think like it's one of those things where if you and maybe this is the wrong way to think about it, but I personally think that if you're not watching the same kind of content that you're trying to create, even if yes, I think you should like make content that you would probably want to watch or consume in some way. You're like, oh, I sometimes like this might be like super like I forget the word, like I'm narcissistic, but like I sometimes watch back some of my videos that I haven't watched that was like 3 months ago, 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty good. I learned something again. Like I'm like
Nice.
that turned
reminded
out pretty
me. It
good.
was almost like a video note. That's
Yeah,
kinda
like
cool.
I'm like,
Yes.
oh, that was a lot better than I thought it was. And I think like I watch so much YouTube, for example, that I know what kind of YouTube videos I want to make. And I think if you're not whatever medium you're in, whether that's streaming or YouTube or articles like that you're writing, if you're not consuming that same kind of content, then you're not going to do it with yours too, and you're not going to be able to make those small steps to improve and learn because you're not like, okay, I'm never going to watch or read my own article other than when I'm
Yeah.
proofreading it. Well, then our next article probably isn't going to be better.
I think that is a great point and worth reiterating that if you want to create content, make sure you're watching, like you're emulating the kind of content you enjoy to some degree. And I didn't listen to this podcast for at least the first year that we did it. I was just like, I don't want to hear my own voice. I'm good. We had fun. I'm out. And then I found that over time to be a mistake in the sense of like, I want to go back and see if perception and reality were aligned. And if they weren't, oftentimes not, where that mismatch was, and then just kind of take a mental note of that. Because again, listening to other podcasts, tech and non tech, there were things that I enjoyed there that I wanted to integrate. And I wanted to know whether I had done so in the way I intended or if I needed to think about it in another context. But
That's good. I like that.
Cool. Well, we are
shizzle.
at time, and I think your mic is messed up again, possibly. Try to say something, and we'll see.
Say something.
Testing.
Bell.
1,
Say
2,
it.
3. Hey, everyone. Hey,
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
top
messed up. So
fuck
I'm
up
gonna
again.
say, I'm just gonna play you out with my voice. This is Josh Cirre, everyone. Check out Laravel. It's a cool framework for PHP. He does cool videos that you can find on YouTube. I don't know. You can let us know some other things to put in the
And-
show notes because we don't want to do the whole fixing thing right now. But
And
thanks
this
for coming on,
episode is
Josh.
brought by Laravel, and Taylor Otwell will send us Lambos.
Yes.